Shameless.
United in the Europa League. Europa League. Me tell them one time and we say Europa League.
What's going on, people? Welcome to United View and welcome back to Semra Hunter, who has come by the UV community for a special game, for a special reason. You know, when there's anything La Liga happening, and football in general, but especially La Liga, Semra, you are the go-to person. Welcome back to the channel. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me back. It's always nice to have a chat with you.
Thank you so much. And you know, the last time we spoke was about the mess that Barcelona were in, the economic levers, etc., etc. Are they going to have to sell all of their players? And that seems like a long time ago now, because this is a resurgent Barcelona, top of the league, 11 points clear, flying, only lost one game all year, conceded single figures goals in the league. They are absolutely flying. The only place to start with this blockbuster game is to just get straight into Barcelona, Semra. How good are they now?
Well, they're very good for a lot of the reasons that you just stated. I mean, those are the results, obviously. Those are the consequences of the good football that they've been playing. But I will say that there is a caveat. You can't read too much into it in the sense that everything looks,
Caveats. I want loads of caveats,
easy, my friend. Because I would say that they are improving. They're playing the best football of the season. But I really think this is going to be a good test. I think this is going to be a very good challenge for Barcelona, because they've turned into the new Atletico Madrid, Diego Simeone, in terms of just squeaking out these 1-0 results. You probably remember back in the day, Simeone loved to go ahead 1-0, sit back, defend, and that was it. Defend it to the death. We don't need to score any more goals. That's not the case for Barcelona. It just means that for whatever reason, they're having a really difficult time actually killing off games. But so
they're not free flowing. They're not smashing teams 3-0, 4-0, and goals.
Depends. It really depends. It depends on the opponent, because in open games they do exceptionally well, and that's when they can smash opponents, because they really enjoy those spaces. And so whenever they go up against attacking sides, they tend to do really well. It's whenever they go up against teams that sit deep, that sit in a low block, that run a very tight defense, have 5 or 6 men in the back line, all bodies pretty much behind the ball,
right?
Then they have an exceptionally difficult time trying to find something a bit more creative. And that's where Dembélé, for example, was really good for Barcelona, because depending on his day, he's also been kind of 50-50 in terms of form. Either you get this genius who nobody can stop, or you get someone who's just woeful. There is kind of no middle ground with Dembélé. He's not going to be there, by the way. He's injured.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's injured. He's still injured, right? He's still injured.
But he is kind of the joker in the cards, in the sense that he's the one who could provide something really different and out of nowhere create a bit of magic for Barcelona when they most needed it against stubborn defenses. So they have really improved in the sense of how they work off the ball. They've been pressing a lot higher, and they've been recovering the ball in the final third a lot better than they used to. And they're also forcing teams who are trying to build out of the back to make a lot of defensive errors. And quite a few of their goals in the last few games have come from that. And so they play with a lot more intensity and a lot more pressure than they used to, at least in the earlier stages of the season. We would see moments of it, we'd see glimpses of it, but it was very difficult for them to maintain that for 90 minutes. But now they're doing it for longer periods of time. And also defensively, they're much better.
They're much better, yeah, because they were struggling, weren't they? Yeah, they were really bad defensively.
I mean, a lot of that had to do with the fact that they had so many players out through injury, and all of them were in the back. So he was constantly rotating week in, week out, game in, game out, trying to come up with a makeshift back four. But finally, Araujo is back, who's so unbelievably important for them. I can't stress how important he is for them. He's such a pillar for them. He's a leader for them at the back. He orchestrates everything for them. Kounde is playing out of position at right back because he can't get into the heart of the defense right now. Christensen and Araujo have been playing really well in a partnership. And Christensen's actually been surprising us in the sense that he's actually quite good. Maybe you guys already knew this because of how he was in the Premier League. But for us, it was a bit of a surprise that how well he is technically, how good he is technically on the ball and actually building from the back and bringing.
I feel like La Liga will suit him definitely. Like if he's playing in a Barcelona team, he's not like the most of rugged defender, strong brute. Yeah. He's more like a keep calm, steady Eddie, and he's technically okay. I think he did okay at Chelsea in some games, but he was always seen as like not the guy. But I think maybe he's married up with the perfect style of play and the perfect league for him. On Kounde at right back. like you said, he's playing out of position. I saw him play there because obviously France in the World Cup had quite a lot of problems at fullback, and he played at right back. And I don't know, I just wasn't really convinced with him there. And I remember looking at it thinking, we got to play these in a couple of months. I know it was November then, but I was like, I think Rashford can have something to say about that. Like, I think he can be got at. But how do you see him playing out of position, just to talk about Kounde for a sec?
Initially, I agree with you. I wasn't terribly convinced. And he himself is very outspoken in saying that he doesn't like to play there.
Yeah,
he's a central defender.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign.
But the flip side is he said, I want to play. So if Xavi tells me I have to play there, I'm going to play there and I'm going to do my best. And actually, he's quite good going forward. He's provided a few assists, and that's what Barcelona really like. They like attacking fullbacks. They like fullbacks that will really drive up the pitch and who will offer up some crosses into the area. And Kounde's been good at that. And he has improved, I think, defensively on the right-hand side. I think he's getting more familiarized with the position. He's obviously getting more settled in. But the key here is Araujo, because Araujo provides cover for him whenever he goes forward. Yeah. So he knows that if for whatever reason he can't track back, if he leaves space in behind, he can't win a foot race, whatever, he's got the Uruguayan behind him. You talk about Christensen being this more kind of like steady Eddie type player, maybe not necessarily getting into rough and tumble situations. Well, the Uruguayan will do that for you.
Yeah, he is. He's a beast. He is. I have seen him quite a bit, and he's like a bit of a madman. You know, he's just really in the tackle, strong and aggressive, and I suppose Barca need that midfield.
And he's very intelligent because he always knows how to place himself at the right time. And so he's cleared the ball off the line quite a few times when Ter Stegen couldn't get there, for example. So he saved them at the back in key moments. And I suspect he'll be able to do the same again. He's very intelligent in terms of reading the game and knowing what he has to do in a given moment. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. But he is colossal, and that is like you said, that's probably a reason why he's been doing so well as at Kounde, improving because he has him next to him. And we've seen stuff similar at Manchester United when people play next to Martinez or next to Varane. The fullbacks have all got better. So I hear you on that. But into midfield, because I think this is really interesting. Obviously, the name that I don't like saying, FDJ, I'm going to say, I don't like saying his name. Because he was. Did you see, by the
way, I'm sure you probably saw this. What is it? The cheeky tweet or Instagram post or something that his girlfriend put out?
His girlfriend, very cheeky. Very cheeky. And, you know, about winning the game and stuff like that. And there's, you know, he's a player that obviously Eric Ten Hag really wanted to come to Manchester United, and Man United wanted him. The club said that to me. They were chasing him, and we know that, and he obviously ended up staying. But not just him, just the Barcelona midfield in general, whether it's Kessie playing in there, Pedri, obviously Busquets. I don't know if he's injured or just not playing at the moment.
He's out for the first leg, for sure.
Right, okay, so he's currently out. Barcelona's midfield, what does it consist of? How do they play, and how good has the likes of FDJ and others been? I'm gonna have to start saying.
Call it the Frankie. we can call it. It's like Voldemort, right? He who shall not be named.
Exactly. I'm trying to avoid it for the pain because I really like him. I think he's unbelievable. I think he's brilliant. I would love him to come. I really do. I love him.
We can call it the Frankie de Jong Derby. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. It basically is. But it hurts too much to think about the summer. So, but he's just so good, and I know he's so good.
He is. Okay, well, we'll come back to that. I'll call him FDJ for your sake.
FDJ.
So, Xavi's actually made a tactical change, almost out of necessity, but also I think it was initially maybe experimental, and he's liked it so much that he's decided to stick with it. And so he doesn't play with a 4-3-3 per se. It's more of a 4-4-2 with 4 midfielders. So he's actually scuppered one of the traditional wingers because that's what he really liked to play. He likes traditional 4-3-3 with the 2 wingers who would go out wide, who would bring in those crosses into the area. You've got your traditional striker and Robert Lewandowski. I mean, traditional, he's actually more than that. He's a much more well-rounded, complete footballer. But you've got that target man up front. You get the ball to him, he scores. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what Xavi wanted to do. But things have changed in the last few weeks. And he's realized that by having an extra man in midfield, a Gavi or a Pedri predominantly, who can kind of play as this false winger, or they've actually kind of been playing this square formation in midfield. So then you have Raphinha or whoever's playing out wides and Lewandowski kind of playing up top on their own.
Right.
But it allows them to have more possession and more control of the game. especially against teams who want to battle them for possession and control in the middle of the park. And so they have superiority in numbers, and it's been working really well for them. And then you have players like Pedri who will make those lines, who will break the lines or will make those runs into the box, same with Gavi. And so actually he's been in a much more advanced role and much closer to goal and enjoying much more freedom, let's say, in the final third than he was before. And that's why we've been seeing him as a consequence on the score sheet for the last few weeks. I think he scored maybe 4 goals in the last.
I saw his goal against Villarreal
like
the other day when he literally broke the lines, received the ball, one touch, finish. Yeah,
exactly. And that's what Xavi's been asking of him for months now. And so it was like 2 goals in the first, I don't know, I'm kind of making this up off the top of my head, but roughly it was like 2 goals in La Liga in the first, let's say 3 months. And then it was 4 goals in the last like 4 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, so a big improvement, yeah.
Big improvement for him, definitely on an individual level. But I think Lewandowski is also getting more service that way. And he hasn't really been playing that well since the World Cup, but he's still scoring goals. And that's what
he does. That's
what he does.
100%. That's what he does.
So I suspect he'll probably stick with this 4-man midfield because Dembele is injured, for example. Raphinha hasn't really had a good season. I
saw a little bit of criticism towards him, like he hasn't really hit the heights, right? And in World Cup as well, he wasn't really at his best, was he?
But the funny thing is, if you compare the numbers between him and Dembele, his numbers are almost identical, if not better, in terms of goals and assists. So you're kind of thinking, well, okay, I guess maybe it doesn't really matter that he's not playing that well overall because he's still actually delivering on what they need him to do. Could it be better? Of course. And now that he actually can play on the right-hand side, which is where he prefers, because he and Dembele are fighting for that same spot. They both prefer to be on the right-hand side. And so you can see them a lot of the times when they're playing together up front, swapping flanks, and it just doesn't really work. So I think now that Dembele's out for a month, he knows that position is his for the foreseeable future. And it's a good opportunity to really convince Xavi that he can stay there and that it should be his, even though Xavi really adores Dembele, and it's probably likely that when he's back available for selection, he'll start again. But in that sense, I think he feels a little bit more liberated because he has started to play a lot better. And it was against, who was it the other day? Sevilla, actually, in the second half. He was phenomenal. And it was the best game that we've seen from Raphinha since he's joined the club. And so he ended up getting man of the match, actually, because I think he scored and also offered 2 assists or 1 assist, something like that. I can't remember, but he played really, really, really well. And so if he can keep up that kind of form, then it's a great thing for Xavi and for the club to have. But the good news is that we are starting to see other players get on the score sheet beyond just Robert Lewandowski. Pedri, as we've already talked about. But I think he's really liking this style of play, this formation, and he's going to stick with it.
It's interesting to hear you say that. Yeah, because I look at, Gavi and Pedri. Again, at the World Cup, I watched a lot of Spain. Different type of system. They were, so heavily possession-based without any real bite up front. They were stroking the ball about lovely. Rodri was nice and pretty on the ball. So was Pedri, so was Gavi. It was all side to side. And when they needed to penetrate and really make something happen, I think that's where Spain really struggled in the games I watched.
100%.
Live. Yeah.
We don't have a killer, We don't have
it just wasn't there, was it?
Put it away. No.
Yeah, and Asensio was trying his best, and then other players as well. Who was it? Morata was there. It just wasn't it. But Pedri and Gavi, those two, they are the future. They are the ones, and they are unbelievable. And I just think it's really interesting to hear you talk about Xavi. Obviously, don't need to talk about him as a midfielder, but he understands the importance of that position of the pitch, being a GOAT himself, of those type of players in those two, and it's Gavi who's kind of being like maybe the left winger, and maybe say Kessie and De Jong in the center, and then Pedri on the right, on the wide right. Is that as the 4-4-2? Is that how they're kind of lining up, and Pedri has the license to make those runs?
Yeah, kind of. I would say that normally, obviously, it would be Busquets, but he's not there. Yeah, and actually, by having that double pivot with FTJ next to him, it's made Busquets so much better because he obviously doesn't have the legs anymore to do that position on his own. He needs the support. And so he really has that. And then you have, it depends on the game. It depends on the moment. But you can actually have Pedri or Gavi playing in that false winger role. But I would say more often than not, it's Pedri. But also with Kessie in the sides, it allows for Frankie de Jong to be a little bit more box to box, because he does like to go forward. He does like to be attacking. I think he prefers to kind of look forward rather than look over look over his shoulder and like that kind of thing and defend. I mean, he can do it, obviously. He can do it well. But knowing that he has an extra bit of security with Kessié, or whether it's Busquets kind of as the shields in front of the rear guard, then I think he knows he can take a little bit more certain liberties. And they're not playing as positional as they traditionally used to. So you can see certain players like FDJ or Pedri or Gavi having a little bit more freedom, a little bit more mobility, and kind of roaming around the pitch wherever they want to go in a given moment of time. Whereas before, it was a very much, 4-3-3. Everyone has to kind of stay in a position, more or less. Obviously, Messi was a bit of a different kettle of fish altogether. But historically speaking, it's very positional. And now it's a little bit less so, I would say. And so,
how would you? Sorry, go on.
No, go for it. Go for
it. So we've spoken about how good they are, in transition and how they want to play, etc., etc. Before we kind of talk about the Manchester United side of things, what is Barcelona's weaknesses? Where can Manchester United hurt them? I know you spoke a little bit about lack of being able to break a team down in like a low block and men behind the ball. Is that you kind of going towards Manchester United's best chance of winning this game is playing in that way and trying to hit Barcelona on the break, or is there more to it than that in terms of Barca's weaknesses?
Yeah, I would say it's twofold. On the one hand, yes, you have a much better chance of stopping Barcelona if you're going to sit deep and park the bus and defend and not allow for spaces, because they love to come through the middle. They like to play off 1-2s in crowded areas. They're good at that. They can do that really well, Barcelona, but sometimes it can be a little bit too much for them to handle if it's a bit too crowded. And like I say, they have sort of certain ways of playing that they sometimes run out of ideas. So if they get frustrated enough, it'll be very difficult for them to create something a little bit different, a little bit unique.
Okay. Point note. I'm just going to write these down. I'm going to pass these on to Eric because we've got to do the press conference. I'm going to be in there. I'm going to be passing these to him. Not that he needs my help. He's probably already seen this.
Yeah,
it's good to know. It's good to know.
Well, the one thing is one thing that drives me crazy about Barcelona is that they don't too often take many shots from outside the area. They really love to get close to goal.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's
like Spain. Like Spain in the World Cup.
Just try a long range shot, for the love of God. Just try it. Do something a bit different. I mean, it does happen, but not too often. They really do try to get as close to goal as they possibly can, and they usually shoot from inside the area. Having said that, another point of contention for them would be, you mentioned the word, transitions, defensive transitions. Because they play such a high defensive line, because they press so high up the pitch, there's loads of space at the back, And I think Xavi understands that, okay, we can sacrifice maybe conceding a goal or two as long as we score more, which is kind of actually the old school philosophy of Johan Cruyff and the Dream Team. It was like, you know what, we can ship 3 goals, but as long as we score 4, it doesn't matter. And so I think he kind of understands that is a little bit of the weak point here. It's very difficult for them to have complete control and stability at the back. And it kind of seems like a surprise, right? Because you're looking at the clean sheets that they've had in La Liga this season. It's ridiculous. It's like 16 out of 21 games or something. And a lot of that is down to Ter Stegen, because he's having the season of his life.
Okay, that's another note. So the keepers, Ter Stegen's on his best form at the minute, noted.
Exactly. I mean, I would say he's one of the best, if not the best goalkeepers at present, just in terms of how well he's playing. And he has bailed them out more than once.
Making big saves. Okay.
Absolutely. Because they do get caught out at the back. And so that is a really good opportunity for Manchester United. But again, I'm sure we'll talk about this. You guys have a lot of absentees in the forward line, right? And attacking players. So you're kind of a little bit short on that resource. But having said that, it's definitely still their weakness overall, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, like I say, because they're not really conceding goals at all.
Yeah, they're not. But you can see chances can be created in that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I think this is a really good test for Barcelona, because the quality of Manchester United and how well they're playing recently, I think will definitely put them up against the ropes at the back. And they'll probably create better chances than most have done against them in the league. So I would say definitely defensive transitions for Barcelona. Whenever they lose the ball, if they can just get forward as quickly as possible and they can take advantage of the space in behind. I mean, you have to get past the Stegen, but it's definitely an Achilles heel for them in the way that they play.
So, because their only loss was against Real Madrid, right, this year?
Well, in 2023, they haven't lost anything.
This season, though, I mean.
This season in the league,
was it only Real Madrid to beat them?
They lost against Madrid. They obviously had a shambolic campaign in
Champions League. Yeah.
But since that defeat against Bayern, they haven't lost at all. In any competition.
All comps, yeah. See, so we I mean, and that's it. As a Manchester United fan and us going into this game, we know the tasks that's ahead. And I think actually it's interesting that you say it's a good test for Barca. And it's an even bigger test, kind of the same thing for maybe different reasons for Man United to see where we are. This is a big test, and it's weird because this is a game that this is only to get through to the next round of the knockouts at Europa League.
This could be like a Champions League final. In fact, it's been one, obviously, but it could be one again.
It's so painstaking that we're going through such a game of this magnitude.
Yeah.
This is a playoff, essentially, you know?
Crazy.
Not so much for Barca because they've dropped out of the Champions League, but for us, like we were joint top second and didn't score enough goals to win the group with Sociedad, which was really annoying. And I just knew.
Listen, you can take solace in knowing that Real Sociedad have been by and large the best team in Spain this season.
Really?
So, oh my God, yeah.
And we didn't even, and you know what? They weren't even that great again, especially the home game when they got that penalty that wasn't a penalty. It wasn't like they played us off the park, and it was just really weird, and we just couldn't beat them by 2-0 at their place to get the deficit. But that's okay. That helps a little.
They're an exceptionally good team. They're an exceptionally good team. Wow. So I mean, you can take a little bit of solace in knowing, okay, we lost against.
We'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, the best team in Spain on balance this season has to be.
Yes,
them. Even if it's not reflected in the table, but
they've been good.
They've been amazing.
They've been good. Will Barcelona and Gavi and the fans, will they fear Man United? Will they be very cautious of this? Will they be scared of this? Or are they like, listen, we've only lost one game since Real Madrid. This is light work. They're a new Man United. They're not the old Man United. We beat them last time. What was it? I was there. What was that? 2018? Was it 2019? I can't remember. In the Champions League. Whenever it was, we lost miserably, both legs. But yeah, will they be fearful of this Man United team?
I don't think fear is the word. I think respect is the word. I think both clubs are going through transitions, both on and off the pitch. They're going through a very sort of parallel life, if you will, right now. And so I think there's definitely a lot of respect for who the club is, what the club have done for football, not just in England, but in Europe, historically speaking. And so I think that they will take this game incredibly seriously. Not that they wouldn't if it was somebody else, but it is Manchester United. It's
how much pressure's on them? Because they come out of the Champions League and obviously, Barcelona are supposed to be in. If they get knocked out by Manchester United and, can't even make Europa League, what sort of impact do you think that has on them and how do you think the pressure affects them?
I think there's definitely a lot of pressure, but maybe a little bit less considering that they're doing so well in the league.
Yeah, true.
I mean, they're 11 points clear. Madrid have a game in hand, which they play on Wednesday. And on paper, they should win it because they're playing the team that's pretty much going to be relegated by March.
Wow.
They've only won one game all season long. I mean, it's terrible. So on paper, they should win. I mean, if they don't, then that's a whole nother story. Then all of a sudden, Barcelona, they maintain that 11-point gap or 10 if they draw, whatever. And then they could still lose 3 games and maintain their lead. So I think they kind of feel like they're in a very strong position and it's theirs to lose at this point in time. So that alleviates some of the pressure because that means they would get back into the Champions League. They obviously earn more money by finishing first in the league, but they obviously want to win the Europa League because, again, that's money too. Yeah. And it's a bit of status, it's silverware, it's all these things. So, yeah.
Are they stable now? Are they stable after all of that stuff?
Stable.
Did the economic level,
my friend. That word doesn't exist in their dictionary.
No, are they still? Because like obviously they had to. Everybody was just how the Man City thing's happening and the Chelsea thing about they're spending loads of money.
Right.
How have they been able to do this at the time with one Laporte, the sporting director and stuff? Everybody was like, how is this happening? How have they managed to do this? Then they couldn't even register Jules Kounde up until a certain point. Then they managed to, and then they was all right. Are they still like a few bad results away, or basically not? If they don't win the league and then they maybe crash out of Europe, let's say, obviously it'd take a bit of a capitulation, like you said, being so far ahead of Real Madrid. But let's just say they didn't. Are they a few bad results or a bad season away from going back there because of what they've had to do to secure that money? Or have they somewhat stabilized? Or could in the summer we see another situation where they need to sell players again, or et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. They're definitely a lot more stable than they were. They're in a much better position now than they were. Barcelona are always one step away from another crisis, so you never really know. Things could change by the summer. But they obviously are desperate for money. They do need money because they have debts all over the place. And so I think we could see a scenario where in the summer they do try to sell off some of the bigger earners, but try to keep hold of the ones that are the most important if they possibly can, which is why they effectively did no business now in January. It was more a case of, okay, who can we get rid of, but we're not going to bring anybody in. And the other thing that they're doing is shoring up the young players coming through La Masia with these big contracts, as well as, you know, these €1 billion buyout clauses to make sure that they're there for the foreseeable future. And now there's this fascinating case going on with Gavi, because he was on an academy contract, but they've made him full-time with the first team. And so in order to do that, they've had to better the conditions, better the pay, all that kind of stuff. And they were having serious issues in January with the league, in terms of maybe not even being able to register for the rest of the season, because it was with that, it was going to be above the salary cap in total for the team. It was a big problem, and it still is. They had to go to court, and they tried to push it through so that they could get him registered. But I mean, there are still all kinds of issues that they need to address and get sorted out. And I mean, we're talking about them trying to actually retain players that they already have.
Yeah, exactly. Which in the summer, that could be tough if people want to come back in for certain players, etc., etc. We know.
So, I mean, even selling players like Ansu Fati, who, you know, a couple of years ago, it was absolutely unthinkable that they would let go of him because he was breaking records left, right, and center at league level, at European level. I mean, he was the next big thing, and he was completely supported and backed by Messi. And you could see it in the way that they played with each other. They were phenomenal together as a tandem. But he had 2 serious injuries. He's been out of commission for like 2 years, something like that, 18 months. And he hasn't been the same since he's been back. And so I think they kind of figure they may be able to cash in on him if they can.
Yeah, I saw him linked with Manchester United potentially, and the Premier League in the summer.
I have a feeling that if they can sell him this summer, they probably will. Not because of what he can offer to the team from a football point of view, but because they figure they can make a pretty penny. And yeah, it's true he's not playing as much as he would like, or maybe even Xavi would like, or the club would like, because you need him to play in order to kind of put him on display to potential buyers and say, look at this player that we have. He's so wonderful, you know, up the cachet and everything else. But I still think that he is a perfect example of the sort of status of things at the club, and they are still underneath it all a bit of a mess.
yeah, it seems like it. Yeah, it seems like it. Interesting stuff there.
Yeah.
From a Manchester United point of view, I don't know how much you've watched of us. I know you're incredibly busy, and you know you are La Liga through and through, day in, day out. But I know you know football. So, what is your take on Manchester United at present, their progress under Erik Ten Hag, and you know their chances in this tie in general? But more importantly, we'll deal with the first game first. You know, big atmosphere, 85,000 people plus at the new camp under the lights. How do you think they're going to do?
I think it's difficult for anybody to come to the Camp Nou and be successful, whether it's Manchester United or anybody else. They tend to be very good at home. They have strong records. Actually, I don't think they've lost at all at home this season. Europe is a different story, but at least in the league, I don't think they've lost at all. Overall, across the 2 legs, I would say I think it's pretty even. I think it could really go either way. Because just as Camp Nou can play to the strengths of Barcelona, Old Trafford can do the same for Manchester United.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's such an incredible atmosphere, isn't it, in the Theatre of Dreams? And they're going to be on top of Barcelona. They're going to be just going at it for 90 minutes, much more so than the fans actually at the Camp Nou. So I think Ten Hag has done a remarkable job, better than a lot of people actually were going to give him credit for or expected that he would be able to do. I think a lot of people kind of underestimated how good he would be for Manchester United. But the stats are there for all to see. Was it only 1 defeat in the last 18 games in all competitions? You're still alive in 4 competitions. Okay, yes, you lost 2 games on the bounce at the very beginning of the season. You were rock bottom, and it was the worst start for our managers.
I didn't think Ten Hag was going to last 10 games at that point. I was like, oh my God.
That's the beauty of football. Things can change like that, you know?
Absolutely. But now
he has like a better win percentage than Klopp, than Guardiola, than Tuchel, than I forget, there are a couple more after this many games in his first season. And you can see that there have been changes. And I think what I like about Ten Hag is the fact that he's so confident in himself and in his abilities. He's been able to kind of tune out all the negativity around him since he's come in. And he says, I know exactly what we need. And this is how we're going to do it. And we're going to stick to it. And one of the things that he's really tried to recapture is the spirit of Manchester United and the spirit of the club, and try to convey that to the players out on the pitch. And I think he even spoke about the importance of bringing in really experienced players like Casemiro and Varane, who have not only made it to finals, but they win finals. They know how to do it. So that really helps in terms of teaching others around them. And you have players who are warriors. You know, you've got Anthony now, you've got Lisandro, you've got Casemiro, who's definitely a big fighter. He never likes to stand back from a fight. He's always up for one of those.
Currently suspended, but not for this game, but in the league. He's got one more
exactly.
game left.
I mean, he'll be back for this one, won't he? So
yes, absolutely.
He knows how to play Barcelona. He's done it a million times. Same with Varane. So I think that by adding these kinds of heavyweight players into the dressing room, it makes a difference. And also, I think the departure of Cristiano Ronaldo, I'm sure I'm going to upset a lot of people by saying this, and I'm very sorry.
I don't think he will.
No,
I don't think. I mean, a lot of people in this United View community, obviously, Ronaldo's close to a lot of people's hearts in terms of what he's achieved at Manchester United.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm speaking for me here. To be fair, I completely agree with you. He had to go, and I think once he'd done that interview, I don't think any Manchester United fan could defend him staying past that.
But I think even going back, like, he never should have gone in the first place. He never should have gone in the first place. It was a mistake for both. And I think it was a very selfish decision for him to go to Manchester United, because he thought, oh, I'll go back to where I really made a name for myself and I can do the same now. And I think it was all more about him than it was like, I'm going to come to Manchester United. I'm going to be a team player. I'm going to help them. It was, what can Manchester do for me in order to kind of
help him in that stage of his career. Like, he's always
exactly.
Ronaldo always does the best for Ronaldo, doesn't he? That's like
Listen,
partly of why he's been so great, but also partly of the downside.
Of course, he's always done that. But there was a period of time where I think he had a kind of right to do that. But that's not really the case anymore in the twilight of his years and of his career. And yes, obviously, I mean, he provided good goals and important things and all this kind of stuff. I think it got to a point where the good that he offered no longer outweighed the bad. And I think it was his presence was more detrimental than anything else. And I think Ten Hag kind of clearly recognized that very early on. And I think he had to do this from the outside looking in. To be completely wrong.
No, you're right.
I think he had to kind of balance, he had to play a little bit of politics, right? Because, okay, Manchester United, they spent all this money on him. They want him to play because obviously of what it can do in terms of social media, in terms of selling shirts and sort of whatever. I mean, his brand and his image will have a very positive impact worldwide on the club. But by the same token, he's realizing, well, actually, it doesn't really fit into the style of play that I want to have. And it's actually really not helping everybody else. And he really wants a collective. And that's what I like about Ten Hag. He wants the collective above individuals. And I think that's what has taken a few months to get there. But now we're seeing that result. And I think the departure of Cristiano Ronaldo has really, really helped with that. And you can see it. I mean, the impact was almost immediate, wasn't it? And it's not just because of what he was doing on the pitch, but also I think just his presence is no longer there. And I think it's really kind of helped a lot of people to maybe relax or feel that they can have a more important role within the side. They can play a different way now. They don't have to cater to just one person. There's a lot more flexibility now tactically in what the team can do. And also, I mean, football, like anything, it's so psychological. It's so psychological. So the impact, I think, on a mental, emotional level as well is huge. So I would say I'm really impressed by what he's done. I'm really impressed by how he's convinced the players that they deserve to be where they are, fighting for the league title. I mean, look at what, the third in the table, 5 points off the pace behind Arsenal.
Yeah, this is the bit where, I mean, some Man United fans are like, we're in the title race, we're going for it. And
I would say you are, especially because we know that Arsenal can capitulate. I mean, they have a history of doing
yeah,
that.
do you know
So...
what? I'll ask you. Yeah, I was going to say, are Man United in the title race then? Semra?
Yeah,
what,
for me they
yeah?
are. For me they are.
Yeah.
There's still a long way to go. There's just under half a season left. Anything can happen. Anything can happen.
Interesting.
And
Semra
City,
says
with
we're in it,
everything
guys.
else,
She says we're in it.
really, I believe it, because I see Manchester United on this upward trajectory. And I think they're playing really well. And I think there's still room for improvement. And I think there's definitely the capacity for the team to continue getting better. There's no question about that. You have City in this huge cluster, you know what?
Yeah.
We'll see what kind of impact that has on Guardiola. We'll see what kind of impact that has
Might
on
actually make them
players.
stronger. You know what Man City are like? When it's like us
it
against
could,
the
it
world
could.
and you get Pep angry, it's like, okay, we're ready. We're ready.
It could.
They looked a
It
little
may
bit
well
like that
do.
against Aston Villa, but yeah, I'm sure they will kick into gear. But it's true, they haven't been the same Manchester City this year by far.
No.
They haven't.
No, they really haven't.
So that, yeah, and the pressure can get to players. That will be music to a lot of Manchester United fans' ears, because I feel like on our community here at United View, there is a large portion, and a lot of our presenters as well. They are team. We are in this title race. They will not accept anything else. If Manchester City are in it, then we're in it, etc., etc. Then there's people on the other side, more like me, where I'm like, I just want the daylight between us and Spurs. I just want the fourth. Just give me the fourth. Give me the Carabao Cup game by game. Because every time we've kind of, in my opinion, turned our attentions to looking at the title, we've kind of slipped up a little bit. Just little reminders that we're playing a lot of games. We've got quite a few injuries, and we get those little blips. But I do hear it. I do hear it.
Who isn't in that situation? You know, all of the elite clubs, all of the big clubs at the top, they're in the exact same position as you guys, in the sense that they've got a ridiculously congested calendar. They've got multiple competitions that they're playing in. They've got injuries week in, week out. So, you know,
we're in it.
No
we're in it. Semra says we're in it, mate. We're in it.
I fully believe you're in it. I wouldn't have said that at the beginning of the season.
Nobody.
Things have changed. And that's the beauty of, a 9-month long season, is that
I don't want to jinx it. I'm still gonna say we're not, but we can finish second or third. Absolutely.
Listen,
we can.
5 points. 5 points is nothing.
Yeah, 5 points, and Arsenal they got 2 games in hand, but their next game is City on Wednesday night, actually.
Do they have 2 points in hand?
Yeah,
sorry,
exactly.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
but
there you go. But you never know.
One of them's going to drop points. There's no guarantee that they'll win those 2 games.
Exactly.
And they've been dropping points, haven't they, in the last couple of weeks?
They're on a bad run, Arsenal. Yeah, no wins in the last 3, I think. And if depending on what happens in that City game, if there's a draw, then that's good for Man United, I guess. And you never know. Look up.
I still stand by the fact that they're in the title race.
Semra says they're in the title race. I've got to ask you, before we kind of wrap up and get predictions, I've got to speak to you about 2 players that you know very well, and you touched on them. And one of them is my favorite player, and everybody knows that. Raphael Varane. I just love him. Yeah. He is my favorite player. I won't have any slander on his name. He had a difficult, tough season in his first season, not really available, wasn't managed too well in a sinking ship that was Manchester United last year. It was horrendous. But this year, with the acquisition of Ten Hag, because when we was on tour, I was looking at Varane. We spent some time around the open training sessions and the team, and it was like he was in like the B team. Like he wasn't, and it later transpired that Ten Hag had him on a specific training plan to get him ready, because he has all these injuries. And he's just done such a good job of managing him to keep him kind of ticking over. But all of our best work is done when he's on the pitch. Now he's retired from international duty as well, which I think is going to help him massively to stay fresh and recoup. So him and obviously Casemiro, two players who have seen and done it all, especially in terms of against Barcelona. How important are these two, with Casemiro being able to play in this game as well, against the likes of, being away at the Camp Nou? How important are Varane and Casemiro?
I would say Casemiro is probably slightly more important, may not be the word. I think he may be more slightly decisive.
Decisive, yeah.
The reason I say that is that I don't want to use the word thug.
You can say that. He's a thug. He is. Of course
you
can.
He's
what he is.
Push them around. I mean, he is going to push the midfield around, and he is going to be trying to get them off their game. He's going to let them know that he's back. He's going to be physical. He's going to be aggressive. That's the thing about Varane. He's so classy. He's so elegant. He's such a lovely guy. And he just goes about his business, and he just doesn't cause, any waves. He just does his thing. Like, I mean, it was unbelievable when he left Spain. It was something like, I think maybe one red card in his entire career, and he's been there for like 10 years or something.
He's a very nice footballer, isn't he? Even though he's like
very nice footballer, and he's unbelievable at tackling.
Yeah,
but it's always really clean tackling. Like, somehow he manages to do it without really getting shown a lot of cards. It's impressive. So obviously, in terms of what he can do defensively, is going to be massively important. But I think in terms of someone really getting up, I mean, Casemiro versus Gavi, I'm very intrigued to see how that's going to go down. Because you have Gavi, who's like, he's so tenacious, and he fears no one, and he loves to get up in people's faces, and he loves to piss people off. Sorry, can I say that?
Yeah,
he really likes to anger people.
We say, Semra, let me just say this, we say a lot worse. We say a lot worse. You're not on national broadcasting TV now. It's cool. You can say
I have to be careful sometimes, because if you heard me in my sort of natural everyday speech, I swear like a sailor. So I do have to hold back a lot.
Absolutely. I hear you. But listen, we say a lot worse than that here.
Fair enough. So I think there could be tensions boiling over between the two of them if they go face to face, because I think both of them do like to kind of.
And the reception that Casemiro is going to get, it's going to be extremely hostile towards him. He's a Real Madrid legend, or a great player in their history. He knows what it's like to go there, and he knows what to expect.
And that's the thing. I don't think Varane would get that kind of hostile reception.
No, he's kind of, like you said, it's kind of like, everyone kind of thinks he's just Varane. He's cool.
Yeah, even though he's a legend in his own right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I don't think he would get that kind of reception at all.
But Casemiro
is different.
As you say, he's a bastard on the pitch. He is. Like, he does it in Man United. He's like, he's exactly what we've been missing. And even the red card he just got.
Personality. You guys have been missing personality.
Character, personality, leadership. Yeah. He offers all of those things. And actually, we've been really surprised with how he's contributed offensively, actually, because I'm going to be deadly honest with you, and the United View community will call me out on it, because very early on, when we got Casemiro, I was skeptical. Not because I questioned his credentials, not because I didn't think he was a good player. I just wasn't sure how it would fit with us. Going through a transition, we were still unsure how Ten Hag wanted to play. And him being out of that team with Modric and Cruz and Valverde, I was like, how is that going to work? He's good in a team that has a structure. He knows his role. He kind of breaks up play and gives it to the players who are better on the ball than him in Cruz and Modric. But in Man United, we don't have that. So how's it going to be? So at the beginning, I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. But everyone said, Flex, you're hating on him. He's going to prove you wrong. And it wasn't that. I just wasn't sure.
Sure.
He shut me up. He shut me up.
I tell you what, what's really interesting? To that end, in his last season with Real Madrid, he actually did start to drift forward a lot more. And you could actually see him switching places with Modric and Kroos at times. And I think that was the season that he scored 6 goals, and he was the second highest scorer in the team.
There you
and
go.
it was just
Shows
like,
what I know.
what?
I know. Yeah,
no,
so he showed he can do it.
But you're absolutely right, because for the vast majority of his time with Real Madrid, that was not his
It's not his game. Yeah.
It's not his game. He was a defensive midfielder. He was a holding midfielder. And as you say, it was get the ball back, get it up to Kroos, get it up to Modric. They're more technically gifted, and have them do their thing going forward. He was never really kind of...
He's not a playmaker, is he?
No, he's not. Exactly.
But at
But
Man
he does
United,
have that.
he's kind
He
of
does
been
have
that
the quality,
sometimes.
though,
Yeah,
so-
exactly.
Yeah,
He's
we
got
we definitely saw glimpses of it in his final season with Madrid. So
exactly. So those two, yeah, I had to get your opinion on those two because I just think
Yeah.
he's been actually massive. Just from a Spanish point of view, though, just really quickly because of David De Gea, you know, a lot of fans say that, you know, obviously Enrique didn't fancy him, had him out of the team for a long time. They even thought he retired, and he didn't even retire. Unbelievable. But at Man United, some people say Ten Hag's gonna have to go in a different direction soon because his distribution is not that, and you have the likes of Sanchez and David Raya who really excel at that. How do you see David De Gea as a goalkeeper in this modern game, and do you think Manchester United need to look beyond him because he's also up for renewal as well? There's a lot of reports that he's going to negotiate lesser terms, you know, less money because he really wants to stay. But some Man United fans just say no, we need to go in a different direction. How do you see it?
I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. I haven't really watched him that much this season, so I don't really know if he's performing well, if he's underperforming. But yes, I think you're right in that he's not the best goalkeeper with his feet. He never really has been. He's a good goalkeeper. He's a good shot stopper. But there are those who are better at building up play from the back.
Yeah.
So I guess it really depends on the manager and the style of play that he wants. So if Ten Hag is in this for the long haul and his style of play is to do just that, then maybe you do need another goalkeeper. But you do need to also, I mean, it's not the most important thing, though, is it? I think it depends on what the priority is of the manager. Maybe he wants that to be the most important thing. I would think it isn't. I would think the most important thing is to not concede goals. And
we need a striker as well. Yeah.
Well, there you go. So if he's the best option that you had in terms of the saves that he makes, how good he is in the air, how good he is at collecting the ball or bombing it away, whatever. I mean, how good he is as just a shot stopper, as a goalkeeper, then if he's the best one you have available to you, then I imagine not renew the contract and keep him around. But if he decides being Ten Hag, decides he wants something that's a bit more of a balance, or a goalkeeper who can do both exceptionally well, or if he prioritizes distributing the ball from the back, then maybe he'll go for somebody else.
Yeah.
So
it is an interesting one because a lot of people are saying he shouldn't get a new contract, and even in the Leeds game, there's been plenty of games actually where you just see kind of the worst of his distribution, but then in the same game you'll see the best of his shot stopping. So it's like that trade-off, isn't it?
Exactly.
Semra, we've come to the end of the video. It's all said and done. You've spoken about Barcelona. You've given us a great insight to Barcelona as per usual, which is absolutely fantastic. And your kind of insight on Manchester United, how you feel. But now it's all said and done. It's only going to be halfway. It's the first game, Camp Nou. We did this when it was Atletico, and Manchester United were on the wrong side of that. Because I think
remember I told you Atletico were going to go through, didn't I? And you were like,
I know.
No.
And the one at home was like the real bore fest. I mean, we did okay to nick a draw away at Atletico, and then when we came home, that was the old Man United. This is the new Man United.
Don't worry about that.
This is Eric Ten Hag's Red Army. Exactly. Having said all this, give me a prediction for how you think the first leg is going to play out.
2-1 to Barcelona.
Okay. If we lose, we have to make sure it's by one goal. Okay, so
I think it's going to be a tight game. I really do. I think it'll be a tight game, and I can't see Manchester United walking away with at least one goal.
Okay.
At least.
Okay. Interesting. So Semra's gone with a 2-1 Barcelona advantage to take to Old Trafford. I'm gonna go. I think we can. I keep saying this because I don't like jinxing it. I think we'll not get beat. There you go. I'm just saying that. I think
so you're going for a draw.
A draw or a win. Oh
yeah, of course. Or a win.
Yeah. We won't get beat. So
you won't get beat. That's a good way to put it. All right.
We won't get beat. But Semra, thank you so much for coming through. It'll be great at the halfway stage once this game is out of the way to catch up with you again, to reflect upon the first leg and look into the second leg. If you'd be free to do that, it'd be great. So guys, thanks for watching. Let us know what you think about what Semra's had to say with the assessment of Barcelona. Are you nervous? Have you listened to what Semra said and you're like, actually, this is why we're Man United and we're going to do it? Let us know in the comment section below, guys. We are out of here. Take care.